Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Saga and I am an aerospace engineering student at the University of Sheffield. And in this video, what I'm going to be talking about is interviews. So a couple of people have reached out to me and asked me to make a video about how I prepare for interviews and sort of what I say during interviews. Well, I've been doing many interviews recently because I am in my final year of engineering, so your boy has to try and find a job, I guess. So this video is basically a condensed version of what I know about interviews and what I say in interviews and what sort of things has worked well for me. So yeah, let's get into it. Cool. So first things first, why are people interviewed? Well, companies really want to hire the best people they can for their company because each person is really an investment for the company. Every person that the company hires has to be trained and have money spent on them for them to then become profitable for the company. So an interview really is there to try and understand what the person is like, how they are to talk to, and to see if their actual credibility holds up from what they've said in their resume or CV to what they've said in the interview. So how do I actually prepare for an interview? Well, I do it in a two-step sort of method. So the first step being, I try and figure out what previously asked questions there have been for candidates in a similar role to which I'm applying for. And I use websites such as Glassdoor to figure out what questions have been asked and what I should expect in the interview. Because these websites really, they list a lot of questions that other people have listed and said, these are the questions I've been asked for this specific role. And then, so you're able to have a sort of advantage by already knowing the questions beforehand. So you can somewhat prepare for them if they come up. If you happen to be really lucky by researching the questions online and having the same ones asked you in the interview.
A great success!
That's great. I mean, that has happened to me a few times, so it's always a relief when it happens. However, it's not a foolproof plan, so you could get asked questions that are not related to any of the ones you've researched or prepared for. So my next tip will help you with that. Right, so the other thing I do to prepare for interviews is really understanding the company that I'm applying for. So for example, if I'm applying to, say, company A, I'd have a look on their website to understand what that company does, any of the recent work that the company has been notable for. I'd also try and understand some of the challenges that the company's facing, or maybe what that industry that the company's in is facing. And through this, you really get a broader understanding of what the company does, what challenges it faces, and also how it fits within the industry that it operates in. Because a lot of these interviews, they want to understand your knowledge not only of the company, because if you're applying for that company, the recruiters would want to see your interest in the company. However, the company also wants you to be profitable, so you bringing in industry understanding and knowledge is always useful, because then you're able to provide some insight and knowledge that other people may not be able to. So it's always good to have a broader understanding of the field that the company operates in. Ultimately, there's like many ways to understand what a company does and the industry that it operates in. So I personally look at the website. They often have case studies listed on their website. I tend to also look at LinkedIn, see what some of the notable figures in the company have been posting. Also, Twitter is useful for that. And just end up with a sort of overall understanding of the industry and the company that I'm applying for. Awesome, so now you know how to best prepare for an interview. But some of you are probably wondering, how should I act in the interview? Well, this is interesting because I think there's a misconception where people think that you have to speak like the Queen, where you'd say, one would recommend this is a solution for your company. But that, I have never done that. I've never spoken like that in an interview. To be honest, I just speak how I normally would. I even sometimes use slang words like cool or cuz. Huge disclaimer, when I say cuz, I mean the short form of because, not hey yo cuz, why do you give me the job, fam? What are you playing at, yeah? I only got the qualifications for the thing, innit? Give me the job right now. I'll come round your ends, yeah? the interviewer doesn't really care too much about using slang like that, because most of the time the interviewers themselves, you know, they don't speak like the Queen, so you shouldn't really worry about how you say things to a certain degree. It's more important to be on top of what you say, because ultimately the recruiter, as long as they understand what you're saying and is able to pick out the key points from your cases or arguments for why they should recruit you, then it's always a great thing, because you're going to be trying to sell yourself, and if you sell yourself effectively, even without using the Queen's English, for example, it's going to be fine, because the recruiters want to know who you are as a person and not someone who's fake you, basically. So I think the best way to actually act in the interview is just like yourself. And the important thing that I try and focus on is I try to somewhat build a relationship with the interviewer, in a sense where I talk to them, you know, as I would with a friend. If you become a likable person, then you're more likely to get put forward for that position that you're applying for over other people. And sometimes this can be hard, sometimes it's easier to do that. Just it all depends on who your recruiter is, because sometimes, you know, you could just click, sometimes you may have your differences. But ultimately, if you are actively, you know, trying to be as friendly and as genuine as you can towards the recruiter, then the odds are in your favor, really. So that's why I think you should have the ability to really develop that relationship with the recruiter just by being your authentic self. Another point I have with regards to actually performing in the interview is that make sure you listen to the recruiter, because you don't want to answer a question which they have not asked you. Because I know people really, they just go off on autopilot and answer questions that they prepared for, but it's not necessarily the question that the recruiter asked. So, you know, okay, in an extreme case, the recruiter might be like, how many bananas are in the tree or whatever, and then you give the number of like apples in a truck going to France, and you're like, that's the question that you prepared for, so you just gave the answer. And obviously you're not going to get questions like that, but you know, you see how dumb it looks when you make it that obvious, and that's how the recruiter will see you, because they'll just be like, this guy's an idiot, like,
You stupid.
No, not.
you didn't even listen to my question. So it's always useful to actually stay active and listen to the recruiter rather than just going off and talking about whatever you prepared for. Lastly, it's crucially important that you sound and behave passionately about the topic that you're talking about.
There is no passion, there is no vision.
Because ultimately, as I said earlier on, the job of that recruiter is to try and choose the least riskiest person for the role. So for example, if you are applying for a job in the tech industry, you want to showcase that passion and interest of the tech industry to the recruiter. So that could be, you know, through giving examples in the industry, showing your knowledge of the industry, and maybe even like telling them about experiences you've had either working for or doing anything really associated to that industry. And because a company is looking for employees to stay with them long term, because it's more economically beneficial for them, then it's always a good thing to show them that you're passionate about something, because you're most often than not going to get that position over someone who's not demonstrated any passion or any interest in that area. So it's always crucial that this is something you get across, especially if you're a graduate, because as a graduate, you realistically have no tangible skills applied for the role necessarily. So the only thing that differentiates you from someone else is your passion and your understanding of that industry that you want to work for. Okay, so the final thing, a lot of people generally are confused about what to ask the recruiter at the end of the interview. There's lots of stuff online that says, you know, you must ask questions at the end of the interview, else like they won't hire you. And I think it's a bit vague, so I'm going to try and give you a good framework really to use to conjure up questions to ask at the end of the interview. Because how I see interviews is that they are supposed to be two-way interviews. It's, yes, the recruiter wants to learn about who you are, but it's your responsibility as well to understand about what the job entails, what it's like at the company, and so on. Because you know, you're going to devote a good portion of your life working for the company potentially. So if you don't ask questions, then that's kind of like, what, I guess getting married to someone you don't know. So, you know, it's always a good opportunity to ask questions in an interview. Right, so here's my framework of asking questions in an interview. Firstly, I think about questions they've asked me and sometimes try and flip that back onto them. So for example, there was one interview I had where they asked what are the challenges of the company, and I literally just flipped the question and was like, what do you think the challenges are for your company? And I think that's great because you get to learn more about the industry and the company anyway through the person who's got the most experience, and you're able to evaluate whether your answer was right or wrong straight away. So if you are the type of person who always looks for feedback from interviews, then just ask the same questions that the interviewer did to you, so you get pretty much instant feedback on what you said. The other thing which is important to ask is also what it's like working for there, and crucially why they chose to work for the company. And I find answers to these questions really interesting because it helps you understand, you know, what it's really like working for the company, and it's sort of a first perspective view as to why someone would want to work for the company. And overall, asking these sort of questions will really make you stand out, especially if you do flip some of the interview questions, because I've had recruiters that laugh at me before answering because they just don't expect that to happen. So if you want to be memorable, then definitely use that tactic. Well, that's my sort of insight as to how I go about doing interviews and some of the tips that I have that may help you get a job through an interview. And well, that's all I have to say about interviews in general, and I hope you all the best for finding a career or job of your dreams or whatever you choose to do. And also a side note is that I am now on TikTok. I've posted one video so far, and I'm hoping to post a lot more, so definitely follow me on there if you use TikTok, and also give me suggestions of what to make on TikTok, because your boy's never used TikTok in his life, and well, we'll see how it goes, you know? It might just be a whole meme of me doing random stuff about aerospace, tech, and uni. So we shall see how it goes. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video, so please subscribe to my channel for more insightful videos like this one. Comment your thoughts on how I do my interviews, and also tell me how you go about preparing for interviews. And cool, stay tuned for more videos and share this with friends if they also think that they might find it useful. See you around, guys.